The light filters through the window, painting a pale, familiar rectangle across the floor. You feel the heavy, woven texture of the sheets against your skin.
And you hear the faint, distant hum of morning traffic outside.
Right. And in the span of a single breath, your consciousness smoothly assembles itself. The comforting weight of childhood memories, the quiet certainty of your personal identity.
The lingering emotions from a dream you are, well, already forgetting.
Exactly. The seamless continuity of yesterday flowing effortlessly into today. You open your eyes, you are here. The world is exactly as you left it.
But consider the delicate texture of that certainty for a moment.
Mhm.
What if the physical sensation of the fabric against your skin, the precise geometry of the room around you, didn't actually evolve over a lifetime?
What if the universe did not slowly forge the atoms of your body in the hearts of dying stars over billions of years?
Imagine instead a creeping, silent terror, the very real mathematical possibility that you, your room, and the intricate emotional tapestry of your entire past spontaneously snapped into existence just a microsecond ago.
Coalescing entirely by chance from a cold, featureless void of cosmic dust.
Welcome to the original thought.
Our mission today is to gently guide you through the slow, inevitable collapse of certainty about reality itself.
We will explore the chilling probability that the universe, exactly as you perceive it right now, complete with its vast history, its unbreakable physical laws, and your deeply personal memories, is nothing more than a fleeting, isolated illusion.
To even begin to understand how your morning routine, how your very sense of self could be an artificial construct of blind chance, we have to pull back. We have to look at the relentless march of the cosmos.
Yes, the fundamental physical laws governing the timeline of absolutely everything that exists. And that journey has to begin with the concept of entropy.
Entropy is, at its core, the fundamental measure of disorder in a system, isn't it?
It is. The universe is marching inexorably toward a state of maximum entropy. The laws of thermodynamics dictate that ordered systems inevitably decay into disordered ones. It's the arrow of time.
Meaning, a shattered glass does not spontaneously reassemble itself.
Precisely. Stars burn through their nuclear fuel and fade. Galaxies drift infinitely apart. Even black holes will eventually evaporate into nothingness. In the unimaginably distant future, the universe will reach a state known as heat death.
Heat death sounds violent, but from an astronomical perspective, it is actually the exact opposite. It is the ultimate silence.
It's perfect thermal equilibrium. There'll be no light, no structure, no usable energy, no stars, no planets. Just a featureless, eternal void of absolute cosmic stillness.
An endless ocean of perfectly distributed, freezing dust.
But here is where the absolute stillness becomes a profound problem for our perception of reality. Because within an infinite timeline, absolute stillness is actually a physical illusion.
Right, because the rules of quantum mechanics and thermodynamics suggest that even a universe in perfect thermal equilibrium is not entirely dead.
Exactly. It remains restless at the microscopic level. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle and thermal fluctuations guarantee that particles will still randomly bump into one another.
Even in the dark.
Even in the dark. Over incomprehensible, infinite spans of time, random microscopic movements occur. And in an eternity of formless chaos, these random collisions will eventually, by sheer, indifferent chance, force particles to arrange themselves into temporary, highly ordered, low-entropy states.
I find it helpful to ground that cosmic scale with an analogy. Imagine taking a massive box filled with millions of loose Scrabble letters and just shaking it continuously.
Okay.
If you look inside after a few minutes, you will almost always find chaotic noise, just jumbled letters. But if you shake that box for an infinite amount of time, eventually the letters will accidentally fall into an arrangement that spells a single, perfectly coherent word.
Because given eternity, every possible configuration of matter, no matter how profoundly improbable, will eventually occur.
And that mathematical reality becomes a waking nightmare when we apply it to the cosmos. Let us look at our universe. Originating from the Big Bang with its billions of galaxies, complex planetary systems, and 14 billion years of intricate evolutionary history.
Our universe is the equivalent of shaking that box of letters
Yeah.
and accidentally producing a complete, perfectly formatted novel, complete with nuanced characters, chapters, and flawless punctuation.
The energy and the precise coordination required to randomly generate a massive, highly ordered system like our entire observable universe are astronomically demanding.
It is so mathematically demanding that spelling a single word by accident is infinitely more likely than producing the novel. The probability of this vast, orderly universe arising from a random thermodynamic fluctuation is, well, it's vanishingly small.
The mathematics places this probability roughly at 1 in 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 123, right?
Yes. To even attempt to visualize a number that astronomically small defies human comprehension. I mean, if you wrote a zero on every single atom in the observable universe, you would run out of atoms long before you finished writing the number.
So we have the incredibly improbable novel. Now consider the single word in our scattle analogy. A single functioning human brain floating completely isolated in the cosmic void.
Complete with the electrical impulses and neural pathways necessary for conscious thought. The probability of this localized, relatively small structure fluctuating into existence is vastly more favorable.
It is closer to 1 in 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 50, which is still tiny, but compared to the universe.
The inevitable conclusion of comparing those two statistical realities is staggering. In an internal, fluctuating universe, the random creation of a single, isolated brain is infinitely more probable than the random creation of an entire, majestic universe filled with billions of observing minds.
Therefore, over an infinite timeline, random fluctuations will produce vastly more isolated single brains than entirely evolved universes.
And this theoretical entity has a specific name in physics. It is known as a Boltzmann brain, named after the physicist Ludwig Boltzmann, who first formulated the thermodynamic concepts that lead to this terrifying paradox.
The true horror of the Boltzmann brain does not lie just in the physics, though. It lies in the nature of the entity itself. It doesn't just possess anonymous blank gray matter.
No, to be a functioning consciousness, experiencing a specific moment in time, it must possess exact, hyperspecific neural pathways.
It possesses the exact pathways representing your memories, your understanding of physics, the face of a childhood friend.
The lingering sorrow of a past heartbreak, and the taste of a coffee you never actually drank.
If the mathematics holds true, statistically speaking, you are overwhelmingly more likely to be one of these spontaneous, floating configurations of dust than a biological organism that slowly evolved on a rocky planet over billions of years.
You are overwhelmingly more likely to be alone in a dead void.
But wait, let's examine the timeline of this creation. How does a fully formed biological brain simply pop into the vacuum of space? Is it just a violent flash of cosmic energy and suddenly there is a brain experiencing a Tuesday morning?
That is a very common misconception. We naturally imagine a sudden, violent flash of creation, but the physics of random thermodynamic fluctuations dictates a different, deeply unsettling method of assembly. It takes the path of least mathematical resistance.
Meaning it does not arrive violently.
No. It forms through a sequence of unimaginably slow fluctuations. It would appear exactly like a decaying biological brain run in reverse.
Over eons, disparate particles would drift together from the freezing thermal bath.
Slowly organizing into base proteins, then assembling into tissues, forming individual neurons, and carefully wiring intricate synapses.
It would assemble in the dark, experience one single, perfectly coherent moment of observation, the exact moment you're experiencing right now as you listen to this sentence, before instantly dissolving back into the formless void.
Which shifts our focus entirely. We move from the physical mechanics of a decaying universe to the profound psychological horror of this existence.
Right. Because if you are a Boltzmann brain, you are experiencing the ultimate solipsism. Reality only exists for a single observer, you.
Every other person you have ever loved, every star in the night sky, every piece of recorded human history is nothing more than a localized configuration of particles simulating an external environment within your fleeting neural network.
The isolation is absolute. You believe you are listening to another voice right now, interacting with a vast society, resting your feet on a solid earth.
But in this scenario, none of it is real. The external world is an intricate phantom, a spontaneous ordering of chaos designed entirely by blind chance to trick a single mind for a fraction of a second.
I think an obvious comparison listeners might make is to the simulation hypothesis, the idea that we are all living in an advanced computer program. Both concepts suggest our reality is an illusion.
But there is a fundamental difference in the psychological weight of the two. The contrast is incredibly stark. A digital simulation implies purpose.
It requires advanced technology, an intentional programmer, and a highly structured underlying base reality where the computer actually resides.
In a strange way, the simulation hypothesis offers a kind of psychological comfort because it implies design. It implies an architecture to reality.
The Boltzmann brain requires absolutely nothing but chaos, infinite time, and blind chance.
It lacks a creator. It lacks a purpose. It is the most parsimonious form of existence. Because it requires the least amount of cosmic material to exist, it is mathematically the most probable, making it the most isolating and terrifying explanation for your consciousness.
But if we follow this logic to its absolute end, if we are statistically likely to be random fluctuations, a profound paradox emerges that threatens to destroy the entire concept, doesn't it?
It does. If you are a randomly assembled brain floating in a void, how can you trust the very scientific observations, the math, and the logical reasoning that led us to this conclusion in the first place?
You are describing the concept of cognitive instability. It is an epistemological nightmare.
Because if you are a Boltzmann brain, every single one of your memories is entirely false. They were painted into your neurons by pure chance a millisecond ago.
By extension, your memory of learning about physics, your understanding of thermodynamics, your grasp of the mathematical laws of probability,
And your trust in logic itself are all false memories. You cannot simultaneously believe that you are a random fluctuation and justifiably trust the logical reasoning that proves you are a random fluctuation.
if the theory is true, your brain is fundamentally unreliable. If your brain is fundamentally unreliable, the theory it produces cannot be trusted.
Exactly. The scientific method relies on the continuous, reliable accumulation of data. It relies entirely on the premise that our memories accurately record a real, linear sequence of past events.
The Boltzmann brain hypothesis severs that vital connection between perception and objective reality. It forces the scientific theory to collapse entirely under its own philosophical weight.
It is like walking into a room and looking at a digital clock that reads exactly 8:17. But immediately after looking at it, you are presented with absolute, undeniable proof that the clock is entirely broken.
Its internal circuitry is destroyed, and it is merely displaying numbers completely at random. You can no longer trust that it is 817.
The number is mathematically meaningless. The theory of the Boltzmann brain essentially eats itself, leaving the observer paralyzed in a state where no knowledge of any kind is possible.
This severe cognitive paralysis requires us to look for a way out. We must find a way to reclaim reality. We must navigate the intense philosophical tension between our lived, felt experience and these cold statistical models.
Fortunately, there are semantic and ontological anchors we can use to escape the paradox. Let us examine the semantic defense first.
How does the structure of our language protect reality?
Well, the semantic defense questions our fundamental use of words. When we talk about the Boltzmann brain, we describe its experience as a hallucination or a false memory.
But the very concept of a hallucination requires a real, objective world to contrast it against.
Right, in a boundless dead void where only a single mind exists, there is no objective reference point. The words true and false lose their standard meanings.
The experience simply is what it is. The physical state defines the entirety of reality.
That makes sense philosophically, but there is also a physical argument, isn't there? The substrate paradox. Let's pause and unpack that because it feels crucial. What exactly do you mean by a substrate paradox in this context?
How does the physical nature of a biological brain contradict the concept of the void?
A brain is not an abstract philosophical concept. It is a highly specific biological machine. To process even a single thought, it requires an environment. It requires energy gradients to function.
Meaning it needs fuel. It needs a high energy source and a low energy exhaust to power the electrical impulses.
Precisely. It requires blood flow, oxygen, causal connectivity, a forward flow of time, and a highly structured physical space-time to operate its intricate synaptic processes.
To imagine a complex functioning mind operating in literal thermodynamic nothingness breaks the very definition of what a brain fundamentally is.
The physical preconditions required for thought entirely contradict the chaotic, dead nature of the void. You cannot have a functioning processor without a power source and an environment to interact with.
Furthermore, we must consider the weight of coherence. Let's assume the void can produce fluctuations. Out of all the infinite possible random fluctuations that could produce a conscious state, the vast, overwhelming majority would be chaotic noise.
If you were a random fluctuation, why wouldn't your memories just be static? They would be nightmarish, disjointed fragments of thought, lacking any logical continuity or physical rules.
That is the ultimate defense. A perfectly coherent consciousness, possessing a stable, deeply detailed past, an understanding of complex, predictable physical laws, and a continuous, unbroken sense of identity across time.
It is a profound statistical anomaly. Even among the infinite set of random fluctuations, a mind as ordered, logical, and continuous as yours is exceptionally rare.
So after traveling to the edge of the universe and facing the heat death of everything, this leaves us wrestling with the emotional isolation of the thought experiment.
Are we ultimately forced to reject the mathematics simply because the alternative leaves us entirely paralyzed? Do we just turn away from the equations because the dark void is too vast and too terrifying to face?
We choose to trust the continuity of our evolutionary history, not out of mere emotional comfort, but out of absolute necessity.
Treating reality as a coherent, continuous narrative, trusting that our memories anchor us to a genuine, lived past, is the only ground upon which a conscious mind can meaningfully stand.
We must accept the premise of our own continuity to engage with the universe at all. Without that foundational trust, observation, science, love, and existence itself dissolve into meaningless static.
The mathematical equations stretch out into eternity, describing a silent, cooling cosmos where isolated phantoms occasionally awake in the freezing dark.
But we pull back from those infinite numbers. We return to the quiet, undeniable space of your own mind. Focus on the texture of the physical world around you.
The temperature of the air in the room, the steady, reliable rhythm of your own breathing, the beating of your heart.
Yet the question lingers in the shadows. As you sit here right now listening to these exact words, can you be absolutely certain that the memories anchoring you to your past are evidence of a life truly lived?
Or are they simply the freshly painted illusions of a fragile consciousness that awoke from the dark just a moment ago?
If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, we gently invite you to subscribe or follow the original thought.
We hope you will return for the next episode.
Assuming, of course, that we're all still here.